What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Build Your Legacy investment webinar. I think this is the fourth one of the year. All right, so rock and roll. We got Andy McMullen, the co-host. We got Logan Freeman and Jerome Myers, some of my favorite people on the planet. We've done a variety of hanging out together in numerous places, conferences and book clubs, and we'll go into that stuff. I'm going to ask for some engagement from the audience today, and I'm going to invite all of the panel and the host, the co-host, everybody to engage the audience throughout this particular podcast / webinar. First question I'm kind of curious about with the audience. Welcome, by the way. Really stoked to have you guys. Want to know, of us four people, how many of you guys have either been on a Zoom call, phone call, breakout room, or actually met us in person at a conference or anything like that? Put like a 0 to a 4, depending on how many of us you've actually engaged with, just out of curiosity. Awesome. So we got some fours, 1, a 0. Somebody hasn't engaged with any of us. That's kind of interesting. Very cool. All right, rock and roll. What about this? Have you guys heard us on any podcasts? For the Win podcast, Compression podcast, Dreamcatchers podcast, Multifamily Missteps podcast, or any other podcast, Capital Raiser Show included? Put some of those in there, like where you guys have heard us. Yes. 6.
Jerome has like 3 podcasts himself, so
I know, right? All of them. Jerome is all of them. That's fantastic. All right, cool. Well, let's start with a little bit of intros. So I'm Ruben. I'm host of the Capital Raiser Show. My partner is Andy McMullen of Legacy Acquisitions. We do build to rent, and we are capital raisers and a private equity shop. We partner with people like Rob Beardsley and the DeRosa Group and some other people like Abel Pacheco. What about you guys? Jerome, tell us a little bit about your real estate background, and then we'll turn it over to Logan.
I'm a corporate America dropout. I do multifamily investing through joint ventures, and I don't know what else to say about that. I'm a rookie.
Cool.
I'm just trying to learn how to do stuff. So
we'll definitely dive into joint ventures versus syndications in here.
Yep. And I'm Logan Freeman. I'm a corporate America forced out and was fired from my last job. And I've got Isabella, my daughter, with me here today. It's a little bit different in our household. So awesome. She's been home from school the last couple of days, not feeling very well, but so she's gonna join us. We're Kansas City based private equity firm, primarily focused on multifamily, but over the last couple of years, we've started to really transition into different asset classes. So office buildings, retail shopping centers, flex industrial, looking to continue to grow. We've got about 25 employees, and we own assets around 4 states now. And, look, I mean, I think what I've been going through as a business, person and business owner is going from a solopreneur and kind of just a producer into a business owner. And that's been a big journey for me in my real estate investing career, but just as an individual as well. And so I'm excited to talk about that. And I know we've got some great topics here today. And, this is very timely in my opinion, because I think it's the best time, if not ever, to double down on operations, people, strategy, leadership, because you may not be able to be out there buying as many deals as you potentially could, but you can get ready to do so. And that's what I'm excited to talk about, and why I'm really pumped up right now, just kind of in our business. So happy to be here, excited to engage with everybody today.
That's fun. Anything you want to add to that, Andy?
Yeah, so I was a corporate, never was, because no one would hire me when I came out. So I've kind of been taking a paycheck from wherever I could get it, just feast or famine for many years. Been on the brokerage side, like Logan, kind of transition into development, and then mostly acquisitions in kind of Central California, Southern California, and then we've been focusing on the Southeast and built to rent. So these two, my fondness for Ruben, but these two men here today, I think you guys are in for a real treat. I know a lot of you guys have had an opportunity to listen to them, but there's just something about being around people that kind of figured out the other parts of this world, right? Logan and Jerome talk a lot about the heart, right? Kind of how we have all these pieces that we got to fit together in order for us to really have the fuel to get up and do these great things in business. So this scaling part is really exciting for me. And so I think you guys are going to get a lot out of it. I know I always learn something from you. So thanks for putting this together, Ruben. I love being here.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Just out of curiosity, because I know Jerome is more about joint ventures versus syndications. Just out of curiosity, Logan and Andy, do you guys participate in any joint ventures? Have you guys done that as part of your business?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Andy, I'll just jump in real quick. We got started doing joint ventures and, have done, I don't know, 16 or 17 syndications now and are still continuing to do joint ventures. So I'm working on finishing one right now on a multifamily property. So absolutely use that tool when it makes sense. And there's a lot of reasons to be a joint venture instead of a syndication.
Name some of them real quick.
Yeah. So one, you don't necessarily have to go raise capital from 100 investors. And, we can have podcast. Ruben, you have one of the most successful podcasts around this very topic, right? And everybody says, there's so much money out there. You can just raise capital with a light switch. And, we're 3.5 years into this thing and we don't flip any light switch and the capital comes in the door. So, that's a big reason. The second is, being able to 1031 exchange and actually utilize that as a tool. And that is a huge wealth building tool in real estate. And it's very difficult to 1031 exchange syndications when you have 100 different investors that have to agree on what you want to do. And so I think that's a part of it. And then also spreading the risk and responsibilities out. So thinking about having to sign on debt and maybe somebody brings operational experience or construction to the table and you really can dive into a joint venture with somebody that has other skill sets. It's not very easy to do that on a syndication either.
Yeah, I was going to just add to that, there's so many things that all of us suck at. And so, having somebody on a JV partnership where you can kind of really not only learn, but you can kind of basically secret apprentice. I mean, I suppose that there's tons of things we picked up from Logan, that we picked up from Jerome, that we picked up from other partners. One of our largest syndication that I think Logan introduced us to was the DeRosa Group. That was just an eye opener for us, right? Just on how they kind of run their system, how they put together their meetings, their board meetings, and obviously understanding that none of that's going to be perfect, right? That there's always things that go wrong and how people approach it. So joint ventures are extremely valuable experience for me. I don't even know that we could pull off the syndications that we've pulled off today if it weren't for us kind of buying in. And the other thing that I want to add is so many times people are burned by a bad JV experience or a bad partnership, and that kind of discourages them from ever getting into a JV partnership again. And I just really want to discourage people from thinking that way, because everybody's on here has been in a bad relationship and then you found the one, right? And so I just feel like people got to get back up on the horse with JV partnerships. And if you try to do it all on your own, as I think even Logan and Jerome attest to in their compression podcast, right? A big part of that was like deciding, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this all on my own and keep my sanity. So we're going to figure out a way to scale up by using partners.
Cool. Before we turn it over to you, Jerome, just want to survey the audience. What do you guys prefer, joint ventures or syndications? Put the answer in the chat. Jerome, tell me, what do you love about joint ventures, brother?
I want to own more of my deals. And I can't emphasize that enough. I think a lot of people do the flex. I've got 20,000 doors in assets under management and $2 billion. And the percentage that they own, I don't even know if they're accredited investors sometime. And I just prefer to own more of the deal and have more say so. And I guess you get that if you're in the GP, but the other thing is, like, I left corporate America because I didn't want my number one responsibility to be return value to the shareholders. I wanted to have the autonomy to do what I thought was right, even if it wasn't the most prudent financial decision. And, COVID showed up and we had to make some tough choices. Do we put the pregnant woman out who lost her job because she got sick, or do we let her have a little bit of time and wait for the COVID relief dollars to come in? And, as a syndicator, I don't believe you have that option. As a syndicator, I think you got to figure out how to get the biggest return for the investors, because that is what you signed up for. Whereas I can have a meeting with two or three of my partners and say, hey, here's the situation. What do you guys think? And then we can, if we don't agree unanimously, our voting rights are usually tied to our ownership in the deal. And so majority wins.
Cool.
And I just enjoy that more.
I'll put in my 2 cents too, because when I got my start in capital raising, or what I refer to as capital raising, it was all like a bunch of taking down of fourplexes here in Phoenix back during the crash. And me and my partner were taking down properties with zero of our own money. It was all coming from our partners who were joint ventures, who had say and ongoing responsibilities within these deals. But you can still raise capital, or what I refer to as raising capital, even though you're not syndicating from limited partners. So I thought, number one, it's a little bit more profitable. You have more control of the deal. So I really like that aspect of it. And the other part is you can actually take properties down with zero financing. And this is a type of creative financing, if you think about it, which I think we're going to see a lot more of in the upcoming years because of the rising interest rates. People are going to be seller financing or selling their entire business that owns the assets to other people, so that new syndicators or new owners can keep the existing financing versus getting new financing at higher rates. So I'm curious about this, Jerome, man, because I think a lot of people have heard different things about your story, like you got in a car accident and, you know, your head-on collision with a dump truck and stuff like that. So that's a personal part of it. But I'm also curious about your actual business model. I mean, everybody knows you from LinkedIn, but I'm not sure that they know exactly what you have your hands in terms of what business you're involved with. Tell us about your real estate holdings and what kind of projects you do.
Yeah, I mean, that part's really simple. We own properties in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's a combination of mid-sized multifamilies. I call them mid-sized because they're less than 100. I assume over 100 is large. And we're in the midst of closing on a 6-acre deal finally that we've been kicking around for the past 2 years. It's supposed to close this week. So we'll do a development project on that, and it's looking like 120 units. And that is really exciting for me because as I looked around at deals, I realized like I could buy a construction project, which is a renovation or rehab. But when you start looking at cap rates and you start looking at returns, it looks a whole lot like new construction. Now, it's difficult to get into the new construction for multifamily, but once you do that first deal, I think it's just like every other deal. You become the expert and things become remarkably easier, especially if you can prove that you can make money.
Those 120 units, what is that? Is that like built to rent? Is it garden style, 4-story
Garden style.
multifamily? Yeah.
3-story garden style.
Rock and roll. All right, Logan, this whole webinar is going to be about scaling. You mentioned you have 25 employees. Before, I want to really kind of dig into like the growth and the team members that you brought on board, because we're a scaling company over here too. We have about 6 or 7 people on our team and adding new capital raisers and other partners to our business. So I'll definitely dive into that. But, I kind of want to hear about the scaling from your perspective in the syndication world, because when I had you on the show not too long ago, you talked about going from a 26 unit syndication to a 426 unit syndication on your next deal. Like, talk to us about the scaling power of syndication and how you can do that.
Yeah, well, I think first off is you have to ask yourself bigger questions. And, for me, going through the process of moving from a 26 unit building to a 39 unit building back down to a 12 unit and then doing 426 was just seizing an opportunity and asking myself a bigger question. What do you have to do to be able to achieve that goal, right? And for me, that was really instrumental. Not can you do this, is what do you need to do to be able to achieve that? And so I think that for me, that was a big question mark in my mind, is shifting the framework from if you can do it to how to do it. That was the first thing. Second was finding business partners. And so I know that this was really instrumental in my journey, was finding 2 guys that had, previous experience building, scaling, selling companies, and had complementary skill sets to me to be able to actually do that. And so I had to find somebody that said, okay, what do I know how to do really well? What is my secret sauce, so to speak? And then understanding my partners or what I was lacking. And we talked a lot about this going through the Colby assessments, strength finders, principles U, culture assessment, all of these different things, and really understanding what my sweet spot was. And so I understood, mine is individualization, achiever, competition. Okay. And I overlaid that with the commercial real estate transaction. So what is that in the private equity space? So you got to find the deal, you got to finance the deal, then you have to manage the deal, then you got to implement the business plan, and then you got to run the deal. And so for me, making sure that I knew exactly what I was good at from the get-go, and then finding partners that said, okay, actually, I don't want to do what you're good at. I'm good at this over here, was what allowed us to scale. So that's the first thing, right? And this was by happenstance. Okay. This is COVID-19 shutdowns, have the opportunity to do a 426 unit portfolio in the midst of all of that. Was okay, well, not saying that we could do that, but how could we do it? So we had to go outside and find other partners. We had to find somebody who could sign on the debt for that project. We had to find somebody who could manage that asset, who could get the loan from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae in a very stringent time for lending, and all of these things. And we had to be okay, giving up some of the pie, for each one of those pieces, to know that that was going to allow us to continue to scale. And so that was really important as well. So the first part was knowing my strengths and weaknesses, finding partners that complement those, and then being willing to actually be collaborative and give up parts of the deal. And then, we continued that trajectory, but, so fast that we had to fill gaps. And so, we had to look at, okay, what are the tasks that are being done in the business? And we gave a label to each one, right? $5 task, $500 task, $5,000 task, $50,000 task. And we found out after doing that assessment that the principals were spending a lot of time on $5 tasks. And so we then had to say, okay, well, let's map this out and say, how do we get more of our time in the $50,000 task area? Well, we have to delegate and elevate. And I know a lot of people talk about that, but we actually had to go figure that out. And so for us, it was looking at an organizational chart, it was looking at an accountability chart, and it was finding people that had those skill sets to be able to actually do those other roles and responsibilities. And so that's how we went from 3 employees to 10 employees to 20 employees, and now right around 25 employees.
I actually was going to ask Logan a question about this, because I think a lot about these inflection points. Like, you're kind of going along and you don't exactly know what's working, right, until you're able to look back. So for instance, Logan and Jerome did this, year-long compression pod where Jerome kind of coached and Logan was just, accountable as to all the things that he did right and things that he did wrong. And then you kind of look back and you think, well, this didn't work and that didn't work. And for me, when we really started to figure out to scale some of these deals, and I don't think, I'm with Jerome on the unit. It's not necessarily the unit count, but how much, revenue are we bringing in as a group? How many units are we actually able to help bless these communities as we're developing them ourselves? What other kind of partners and JV partners are we able to help and scale their business? But I think one of the big things for me was figuring out how we could iterate faster, right? And so some people say fail faster, some people say pivot, but the idea that we were going to try things, some of them that we knew that weren't going to work, some were, maybe worked for other people, but they didn't work for us. And then the other thing is understanding the fact that as you're scaling, those same people that you had working with you in that early stage of your development are not necessarily the same people that are going to get you to the next level, right? And that's a critical piece, because a lot of people think, there's kind of, hey, this person was really good at early stage kind of, maybe a jack of all trades, where they were just really good at getting things done. But as you grow, there's got to be much more systematic approach, right? And so I had to bring in people, we've got Pete Vandeveen on our team. I poached you in like a minute, right? As soon as I heard you were available, because I knew that there was things that I was not going to be able to do well, which was the marketing piece. I didn't have a successful podcast. I'd scaled to a certain degree, but I knew that there was people maybe that had kind of the, Pete's from Exxon, right? So he's got kind of a vice president. He can look at things in a second and assess, hey, we need to fix this thing or that thing. In other words, I didn't understand those things until I look back. And that's kind of what I was curious and asked Jerome is throughout that process of you putting the pod together, there's things that are working, there's things that didn't work. When you kind of look back on it now, what were some maybe of those inflection points where, look, I got to get Logan to, sign off on this idea, or, it's not going to work, or maybe you just kind of magooed your way into some people that don't know magoo. You just kind of walk through, he just would miss like buckets of paint falling. Like maybe there's some just things that you like just lucked into. So when you think back now in that year of 90 million, what were some of the things that allowed you guys to scale?
Yeah, the goal was 100. We got to 90 in 12 months and like 103 in 15. So, the timeline, I don't think we get to control time, which so many of us get frustrated with and end up doing some really radical things because we're trying to control time or force something into an arbitrary timeline. The big thing is going from the individual contributor to the leader of people, and the anxiety that comes with relinquishing control and having to submit to the process, and understanding like, yeah, I could continue to do what I'm doing, but there's no leverage. And so Naval Ravikant had this rant where I think he called it a Twitter storm, where he went through the different types of leverage, and we implemented against that. And that when we ended, I think they had like 11 employees. And I think they've just doubled again, and they're opening up business lines and other things. So it's just really, and we're only 7 months past when we stopped recording. But to go from 3-4 people to 11, and then to go to the next level is, from my perspective, just amazing. But it doesn't get started if you can't relinquish control of doing the actual activity. And I think when we start out and we're bootstrapping it, and maybe we don't have an abundance of cash to make things go smooth, we're learning how to do this or learning how to do that in order to forward the mission. That becomes our identity.
If I can just tease this out, I don't know, Ruben, because this fascinates me, like how, especially in kind of listening in on some of those pods as I'd be in morning workouts or even towards the end of the year, like looking back on all of those kind of components that will allow them to scale, and the kind of commitment that Logan had to do to not do things, right? Like the commitment that he had to like relinquish control, because it seems like an easy thing, right? I'll just hand it off to somebody who I trust, but there's gonna be style differences, or they're never gonna do it 90% of the way that you would do it, or there's gonna be like some miscommunication, and then you just want to step in and take over, right? So there's like a faith, right? But I am curious, like Logan, how much of the things that you had to give up, like you're very candid about the energy that you got from maybe not even drinking, which was like a tough thing for you, right? Or the fact that you actually had to spend more time with your family, which is kind of counterintuitive when you're running 100 miles an hour and trying to build your business, right? So maybe talk about some of those other things like that you just had to give up, and maybe some of the early delegations that you made that allowed you guys to get to that. 90 million is, for anybody that's new to the business, understands what an incredible feat that is for any year.
Absolutely. And compression was all about, figuring out ideas and concepts that were complete at the theoretical level, but effective at the applied level. And through my research and really understanding some of these, you start to see eponymous laws. That just means a law that's kind of named after somebody, okay? But there are things like the Pareto's principle, Parkinson's law, you have the Hawthorne effect, all these different, laws of the universe that allow you to get momentum on your side. Before you can do that, you have to go through what we kind of dubbed as the start, stop, continue mental model. So you think about all the things that you have going on in your life. You either need to start something, stop something, or continue it, right? And so when I was thinking through tasks, I had to say, is this a task that I'm not doing, so I need to start, or I need to stop doing it, or I need to continue doing it? So we had basically an answer or a model or some sort of framework to think through this, to be able to go back to, right? So then I took that And then I said, okay, well, where is it at on the, dollar, $10, $1,000 an hour, $10,000 an hour task, right? And so that's all from, these different resources that we brought together as compression. And through that start, stop, continue, Jerome, without beating me over the head and saying it so many times, was, man, there's things that you're doing in your life that are not adding energy. They're just subtracting, right? So they're just taking away from you. It might feel good in the moment, but it is relinquishing your control to be successful in your business and in your personal life. And it takes a stubborn guy like me, multiple times to hear something and then actually see the results. And then because I have to report back to be able to pinpoint what those are. And if anybody watched compression, this face looks a lot different than it did when I was going through compression. I was 290 pounds. I was tired. I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning, just brute forcing everything. By the end of it, and now I'm 250 pounds. I sleep 8 hours a night, and I have the ability to feel really strong energy throughout the day. Why? Well, I subtracted a lot of things out of my life. I subtracted negative mental energy. Man, I love reading. I love reading the Wall Street Journal. I love reading books about successful people. But a lot of times what it was kind of, what was happening was I was comparing myself, and I've gotten better at not comparing myself to other people, but that was one of the things I had to stop. So this is an example, right? I had to stop comparing where I was, along my journey to somebody else's journey, because all you see on Instagram and LinkedIn are all the good things. And it was very difficult for me not to compare myself, because I'm one of my top talents is competitive. And so I'm extremely competitive. And so I had to find outlets. I had to find ways to channel that energy into something else. And James Clear really kind of helped me with this. And so did Jerome, was going through focus on progress, not results. So where are you? Have you made progress? You got to have faith that the system that you have in place is actually working. So how I did that throughout the business was the V2G P2 model. So another guy that I would highly recommend anybody looking into is Marx Acosta Rubio. And we talked a lot about Marx on the podcast. You have to start with a vision. You have to have your values. You need to know what your goals are. Then you have to have these principles. Ray Dalio has a book on principles, and then you have to pay the price. That is the most important thing. The last 2 years of my life, I have paid the price of stress, of working a long time with having small children and small babies, like you just saw one from being home with me here today. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to pay the price, and that's where so many people go broke, so to speak, because they have the vision, they have the values, they have the goals, they know the principles, but they're not willing to pay the price. So you have to be real with yourself and ask, what am I willing to give up to get where I want to go? And I was willing to give up almost everything outside of my faith, my family, my fitness, and then I was going to focus on my future. And the biggest thing I learned through compression was when we first started, I had those principles and values all messed up. My future was way up here. My faith was lackluster. My family was somewhere there in the middle, and my fitness was just gone. I had no focus on it whatsoever. So getting those realigned back into my life allowed me to then have the mental and physical energy to actually understand how to scale a business with that model. So I know I threw a lot at you guys there, but those are some of the tools and resources that allowed me personally to get myself where I needed to go to be able to then take the business where it needed to go.
That's amazing stuff. Let's go back to the scaling part in terms of organizational structure. You mentioned organizational charts. I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about scaling in multifamily, they're thinking about, I'll co-GP and maybe one day I'll become a full-blown GP, but they're not thinking quite yet about, I'm going to hire employees. I'm going to hire virtual assistants. I'm going to have this organization. And then at some point, they're going to have to run and lead this entire thing and multiple people. Tell me about that process for you. And then I'll ask Andy and Jerome about that too.
Yeah. So back to the beginning, we had partners that were aligned on the vision and the values of this. We were not getting in this business to do it part-time or on the side or anything like that. It was, we're building a business that's going to create a legacy that we can then leave to our sons and our daughters. And so thinking about 100 years out was the way that we thought about our business, not how am I going to make money this year? Not like that whatsoever. How am I going to make money in this business? How is it going to be profitable? Obviously needs to be one of the questions you're asking yourself. But in regards to the long-term vision and the values that the principals had, it was, what's this look like in 100 years? We need to build something that can scale and self-sustain. And we always had the idea and still have the idea of getting ourselves out of that business and being able to have people like a CEO and a chief operating officer and a chief investment officer run the business. So we had a kind of a family office mentality. And I still remember the time that we were going through this. It was early on. We started with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. That's Gino Wickman's book, Traction. And we said, guys, are we building something to be, to rival Blackstone? Are we trying to rival Sam Zell? Are we trying to just do our own thing and just be good in the Midwest? What do we want this to be? And the conclusion was, we don't need to be that big, but we would love to build something with the Freeman, the Tuck, and the Webb name that lives on, like Kaufman, like all these names that you hear in Kansas City, Block, and all these people that have left a legacy that lives on after them. And so that's the way that we thought about, structuring the business. To do that, it takes people, right? And we talked about, Naval Ravikant. He said there's 3 types of leverage, I believe. Maybe there's 4. It's people, technology, and capital. And so when I thought about our business, I would love to just automate everything, but let's get real. We are in the real estate business, and that takes people to run it because it is real. It's not just a technology that I can have somebody sign up and have a subscription as a service. And that's not good. That's not bad. That's just the facts. And so thinking about it like that, we said, okay, well, if we're serving people, we're serving communities, we need people to be able to do that. And what do you need to do to understand the methodology around that is, okay, let's go back to the tasks. I'm doing this, this, and this. And it was like, okay, managing property managers. It was, reconciling bank statements. It was putting investor reports together. These are all things that other people can do within a business. Yes, it needs to be done. Yes, it's valuable. Is it a $50,000 an hour task? Probably not. It's probably more like $1,000 an hour task. Let's just say that, to get some of those things right. And so we had to start. We said, okay, well, what's the first hire? Well, for us, it was, let's look at operations. We always need somebody strong in the operations side because that's a lot of, just managing vendors and different things like that. So we started with a director of operations. I needed help on the marketing side because I was running a brokerage, marketing and investor relations. And so I needed some help, with that. And I had no success kind of outsourcing that type of work. I needed it fast. I needed to be able to have my own style on it. So we hired a director of marketing. We had multiple executive admins, in the business just to help in regards to, all those kind of lower level tasks, scheduling. If you ever tried to, schedule time with me or call me or anything like that, it's not going to be very easy. That's by design. And it's not easy to get on my calendar. And it's because my inbox is flooded all day long, every day. Well, now I have somebody managing that 100% of the time, starring the emails that I need to get to and being able to actually prioritize those and figure out what I need to focus on. So, I think that the director of operations was important. Director of marketing was important. We needed somebody with finance and accounting background. So we hired a 30-year veteran in private equity. That's also a CPA. And then we started to build that out. So then within the EOS model, you usually have a leadership team. So you've got, your HR and admin, you have your legal and finance, you have, in our business, acquisitions and dispositions, you have marketing and sales. And so we had to fill all of those seats. So we stuck to the EOS model. We stuck with that. And then we filled in seats underneath those folks after we had the heads of each one of those departments. And that's how we've scaled the business so far.
Woo, fascinating stuff. Jerome, you got any input on that?
So you got to know where Logan's going to understand why he needs what he needs. And the thing that I heard when he was talking was cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And, every month when they turn on the lights, they know they've got to hit a certain number in order just to make payroll. That doesn't count any of the other stuff. And I think when you're scaling in real estate, you got to be really careful because your income's lumpy, right? You're
Mhm.
probably not getting a ton of cash flow through the door, and you're relying on acquisition fees in order to make things work. Well, I got a really tough lesson in 2020 because the deals that I had on the books to do in the first quarter of 2020 and maybe the first half of the second quarter, I had a 50 unit, I had a 66, and I had a 230. I can't remember the exact number anymore. And 233. And people put on masks, and my partners said they're not buying anything while people still have masks on. And so all of my acquisition fees for the first half of the year vanished after I spent the time that I spent finding the deals, organizing, putting it together, putting the offers together, getting to an actual strike price with the owner. So you want to make sure that you really have a good understanding, because part of the reason why I left corporate was we continue to lay people off year after year after year, even though we have very predictable revenue. And so the last thing you want to do is hire somebody, bring them in, and then turn around and send them back out the door and tell them they got to figure out another way to earn a living. From my perspective, other people don't care. They feel like, oh yeah, it's all good. But I don't think that that's the way anybody who has real integrity wants to operate their business. I don't think people are disposable. So you want to make sure that you understand every time that you add an employee, the incremental value that you're going to have to create somewhere else in order to be able to compensate that person, unless they're a profit center. And so when I'm working with people who are looking to scale, I encourage them to find somebody who is going to bring them money, right? And that can happen in two ways in commercial real estate. You find the deal or you find investors. Find a deal, find investors, that translates into money. Getting the VA to do the administrative task allows you to go do that if that's what you want to do. But if you're knee deep in acquisitions, and this is another pivotal moment for Logan, where he was finding the deals and finding the money, finding deals, finding money. He was stretched completely thin. And then eventually he moved to the place where he was just finding the money. And you saw their ability to raise money in a short time frame, exponential growth. And it was because his effort wasn't diluted. Anyway, back to the point. I believe you bring somebody in who's going to pay for themselves. I don't think you want to burden yourself with overhead that is just going to be sitting there. From there, you should be able to max it out. That creates a gap for you to hire that administrative person that's going to help with the operations, and then really allows you to flow from place to place and focus on those tasks that's going to move the business to the next level, because you're working on systems and processes instead of the actual execution. I think so many people work in the business instead of on the business. Back to that mentality, because you bootstrapped it, that I'm gonna do it. I got to do everything, and you don't actually get to look around the corner, over the hill, and manage risk and create opportunities that you probably wouldn't see if you were just there trying to find the deal or trying to find the money.
Yeah,
Interesting stuff.
I would add to that. And when we implemented the EOS, and I don't know if there's a better system at this point, just because accountability is so key. And so what we did is a version of what Jerome's talking about, which is, I've got some experience. I've got some deals that will come in. They'll, certainly will exit. And so if I'm willing to kind of handle a lot of the necessary expenses, then I'm going to need partners that are really willing to make things happen for equity, right? And a lot of people are reluctant to do that because they want to keep more of the deal. A lot of people are reluctant to do that because they feel like they don't have control. Because if they don't have people that are really focused on something, day in, day out at the office, then, it's not going to get done. My belief is that you hire the right people or you partner with the right people. Most people have an accountability. Those people that do really want to get to the next stage are going to be implementing those things. And I do think there's some backstops. So the EOS is a scorecard, right? There's simple ways that everybody can look it up. Certainly call me if you want our spreadsheet. We've kind of added a little bit to it. But every week we have a meeting. We drop down the issues that are important, right? So that we're not just talking about the first topic that comes up that basically, takes the entire meeting, on maybe something that was not as important. So we want to drop down all of those issues that we really have to focus in, pick the 3, and then we look at the scorecard weekly. Usually it's with me and a couple of other people on our operations team. And it's, people are either doing the work or they're not doing the work, and they'll fall off. I have been in a situation where Logan is, where there's a big payroll, and I wasn't good at it. I just wasn't good at it. And so I think most people that are here on this call, if you're making, less than $1 million in revenue, your day should be set up with finding the deal or finding the money. And everybody else that you've got are partnering up with is VAs, et cetera, is handling all the other stuff. Because if you're under $1 million a year in revenue, you got to have leads, and consistent leads has got to be finding the deal or finding the money. When you get bigger and larger, then obviously you're going to have to bring in some other kind of people to help with the operations and the admin, et cetera. So because it does get wobbly after that amount. But I think up until that point, it's really got to be focused on those two things.
Crazy, guys. All right, we have a bunch of topics we need to cover here, like in 6 or 7 minutes. I want to start with this: social media platforms, growing your LinkedIn. I have 11,000 followers, and of the 4 of us, I am the smallest, right? So like, I think Andy's got like 20,000. I think Logan's at like 15 or 16. Same thing with Jerome. I don't even know. I can't keep. What is you're higher? You're like at 18, 20,000. You guys are crazy. How do you grow
Logan's at like 18, man. He broke the sound barrier. Andy, I didn't know you hit 20, brother. I need to be like
just whoever wants to I'll just say, let's go out and take all Logan's lists, and then I just put, hey, you want to meet, and then I go to Jerome's list and Ruben's list, and they accept that I got 20,000. No, but I think you do. I do want to say that you got to be intentional about the people that you're bringing in your network. Not, at a certain point, it does become a little bit too large and impossible. It's unwieldy, impossible to kind of manage. So I've got somebody on the call now that's really helped me kind of with the LinkedIn, kind of managing the people that are actually reaching out on DM, because there's a huge boatload of money. And if we're talking about scaling the business, like if you really wanted to just focus on LinkedIn, just doing DMs with people that, are in that business that can help you with money or KPs or with finding deals, you could spend your entire day in that on the phone. I think, Ruben, most of your calls are coming from that system.
They are.
And so I've used Sales Navigator, a couple other tools, but that's probably a separate hour, but we probably should do that, because I think that I could help, and I think we all could probably help a lot of people. And Jerome has a challenge, like he doesn't want to tag anybody, because like that competition part of him comes back in from his college football days, where he's like, I'm not tagging anybody, I'm going to make the best post that everybody will read, and it's just going to be only based on its merits, right? For me, I'm just like tagging every single group that I could think of.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys on scaling the LinkedIn. Logan,
it got started for me, with Yona Weiss's 10-day commercial real estate
I'm
challenge.
in that right now.
I just never stopped. I said, well, I did it for 10 days. Why don't I just continue? And we're sitting here 3 years later, and I'm coming up on 19,000 followers. I take a little bit of a different approach on LinkedIn, more as a branding kind of perspective. And yes, will I find investors on there and partners and vendors and deals? Most likely at some point. But for me, it's a really an outreach kind of like branding perspective to say, hey, I'm going to show up every single day and post something of value to you. And that's what's really helped me kind of blow up. And it's allowed me to connect with people like Spencer Levy and Ryan Smith and all these different folks that I would never have had access to previously. And so honestly, I'll just do a little bit of a contrarian view. If you're a real estate investor on LinkedIn and you're a capital raiser, you have to compete with every other capital raiser on LinkedIn. So just know that. So your deals, if they are a professional accredited investor, I love the folks who put accredited investor in their tagline. It's like, hey, that's a surefire way for me not to talk to you. And the reason being, because that is not my clientele. Yes, they're an accredited investor, but they are sophisticated enough to, review my projects, beat up every single line item, and they're probably smarter than me, in their own minds. And so for me, it's more of a branding thing. I use it to try to get some outreach out there, but the accredited investors that I have talked to off of LinkedIn are professional accredited investors, and they can be difficult to try to actually raise capital from. I've had a lot of success with folks seeing me on a Business Journal article and then finding me on LinkedIn and saying, oh my gosh, this guy is posting every single day. I need to have a call with him. So that's been the more beneficial thing. I haven't necessarily, been super successful with, the outreach on LinkedIn, but the inbound stuff that people are not really, looking for real estate investments, but are in my network, and then they find me on LinkedIn, that builds a level of credibility that's higher. And now I have star power, like Oren Clough says, local star power in my market. So that's my view on LinkedIn. I love the platform, absolutely. But if you're going there just to find accredited investor leads and having conversation with them, if somebody takes your call, just know they probably talked to Rise 48, and they've talked to Legacy, and they've talked to Jerome, and and so there's just going to be so many more people that they probably talked to.
Are you using Logan Facebook and Insta and all the other platforms as well?
We have used those in the past. Right now, we're not currently using them, but I'm looking to onboard a new marketing firm that will allow me to do that.
Go ahead, Jerome, because then I want to hear what the 6 levels of the red pill are before we
Awesome.
Yeah. So I believe it is a credibility play, and only a credibility play. People want to know more about you than what's on your website, and they want to know if you're consistent. Logan and I got tight because he saw me showing up every day, and I give you guys some videos from the 6 every now and again, and you can't fake that. You can't fake that. And I think in a world where so many things are photoshopped, so many things are airbrushed, people are looking for what's real. And I believe LinkedIn is that platform where you get the opportunity to present yourself, and they get to know you without you having to have one-on-one conversations. They get to decide whether or not they like you based on the stuff that you put out there. And then it's probably the one-on-one conversation that really solidifies the trust. What I found for people who come into my world, they usually watch me for about 6 months before I even know about them. But I flew to Tampa to speak at a conference last week, and a guy chased me down, and there was this really hot chick sitting next to me, and he handed her the phone and was like, "Take a picture with me and this guy." And she turned red. She was embarrassed. She's like, "I don't know who this guy is that is sitting next to me, but I'll take the picture." And it just goes like, I'd never talked to that guy in my life. I had no idea what his name was or anything. Now, it was pretty cool because the conference organizer was there, and he was like, "Okay, but I have no idea." And when you get one of those posts that goes, I'm not as good as maybe Andy or Ruben, but you get one of those posts that go 20,000, 30,000 impressions, you're touching people that you don't even know where they are in the planet. And that, even if they don't reach out to you right away, there is tremendous value in that on the backside.
Yeah, and one more thing, Ruben, I just wanted to wrap up with the consistency part, because I tell people that I'm mediocre at a lot of things. I think I'm pretty good at being consistent, and that part of like them seeing Logan show up every day and Jerome show up every day. With our newsletter, we get a lot of feedback, right? If we can put a newsletter out, it's only once a month. It does take some time, right? You got to think through it, but people they might not even open it, but they're like, yeah, he could probably handle my money. He can be consistent on writing stuff that matters, that when I do open it up, it seems like things are happening. So the consistency part is a big piece.
Cool. We're running out of time, guys, and I want to open it up for at least a couple of questions. I did want to mention the 4 of us became good friends through this thing called the Capital Raiser Book Club, and that went away about 1.5 years ago. I'm just curious because what we did is we would dissect a capital raiser book like Hunter Thompson's or Richard Wilson's book or a couple other ones. And then somebody would take the lead and just describe what's going on in the chapter. And then we'd all participate and engage. And then kind of like at the end of it or throughout it, we would like gossip about other syndicators and what they were doing right or wrong in the space, which is a lot of fun. Is there any chance that can ever come back to Capital Raiser Book Club? And I want to survey the audience. Would you guys be interested in a Capital Raiser Book Club if someone was to take lead on putting this together? Put a yes or a no in the chat.
I think, have you prepared them for this?
I just told them that we're going to talk about the book club.
Okay, because it seemed to me like Logan and Jerome are saying no to more and more things. And if we pull this off, If you can pull this off, man, this is a coup. It was a huge coup. So let's see.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's extremely beneficial. It was an awesome time to do it. And, the books that we really dove into were extremely helpful. And I still use them on a regular basis. And, I won't be able to take the lead on a book club. I would love to come and engage with a book club. But, during the part of growing a business and scaling, I really had to kind of say, okay, what is it that I need to do and when do I need to do it? And working hours, when you have 25 employees now and 5 direct reports, you have a lot more of those meetings and a lot of leadership. But we did, Ruben, I think you'd be happy to hear this. I did get a book club started internally at FTW Investments. And
Whoa.
so we do have our own book club that we have done. Peter Drucker's book on effective delegation or effective leadership, dysfunctions of a team. We did James Clear, Atomic Habits, and we're working on our third one now. So the book club lives on with me, just not necessarily in the same format.
And you also get better at like deferring, saying no's to see how smooth that was. Just saying, sorry, Ruben, it ain't gonna happen. I do. You know what my favorite one was when we had Robin Dreek and you got Robin to the book club and he was just so transparent about everything. With or without Logan, we'll have him as infrequent, that's fine. But I think we should do it, Ruben. And so what's Jerome? Where are you falling?
That was cool. Having the authors come on and talk about the book and using the book club as a way to getting them on for free was awesome.
I'm out.
All right, let's open it up for questions. Feel free to put some stuff in the chat if you guys want. Any questions for Logan or Jerome or Andy or anybody?
I do have a question, and it's primarily to all 4 of you guys. And just how long did the process take for you to go from conception to realization?
Still going.
I know, you know what, I totally get you, but just kind of wondering, because, Logan, you did make a lot of really good points. And, I see that you did put something here in the chat that I'm going to follow up on, because I think we're always growing and we're always learning and looking to expand in however we can. But just kind of for where you are, Logan, for where you are right now, from when you started to where you are right now, how long did that take?
Yeah, so you can see all these books behind me here. We got my camera all off kilter because I haven't been at this office here very much this year. I've been at my other one mostly, but it started for me back in 2014. And so that would be 8 or going on 8 years when I started to really have that shift of, I want to take control of who I am, what I'm doing, and get myself set up. Now, that was 8 years ago. I read all of these books. I put all of these book reviews together. I started to build that foundational experience and knowledge in my own brain. I didn't really tap into it until 5 years ago when I was fired from my job. But I was able to leapfrog ahead, I think, because I had all of this knowledge from these books. So I could go, okay, I know theoretically at this level what I need to do here, but now I need to go apply it at the effective level. And so that was super helpful for me, which allowed me to kind of move forward a little bit faster. And so now I'm not necessarily using those anymore on a regular basis, but I'm using people and the concepts that I'm getting out of those books. And so, I'd say 5 years, in practicality to get to where I am right now. But you can't look at it from a linear perspective. I think it's exponential growth, right? So you have all these foundational things that you go through, and then you get to a certain point, and then you should be able to, pour what called, Gino Wickman and his group and Mark C. Winters calls rocket fuel on your business, right? So when you find an integrator, somebody that can help you do all the things that you're not good at and run that and bring all of the pieces of your business together, then you can pour rocket fuel on it, and hopefully it can be exponential growth. But remember also that we are in, the real estate business, and we have market dynamics outside of our control. And so, pouring rocket fuel on your business might not look like adding 1,000 units. It might look like adding 1,000 pages of knowledge that you can tap into to get ready for that. So just a few thoughts.
Because I know Val. So if there's anybody on this call, I mean, you've already put in the work, right? Like we were talking about earlier, just the leverage of the relationships. So Val leads, one of the San Diego exchanges. She's involved in a lot of the communities in and around San Diego and around the country. And all of those tools are already there for you. You've already got all the relationship capital that you need. So now you need to find that person that's going to let you make all the connections and let you do what you do so that you can scale this business if you want to do it with, exchanges or multifamily or built to rent or whatever that is. So everybody on this call should be calling back. I don't know if you wanted that because I know you've got a full load of helping other people, but anytime I've ever asked, you've always had an answer. We'll talk to this person or that resource.
Yeah.
So where Logan got that, maybe for reading 5 years or 8 years of books and talking with other people, you've already developed that. Now it's basically the rocket fuel that he's referring to, right?
Right. And thank you so much, Andy. What I also wanted to include in this conversation was, I understand that you're scaling up, and is your way of scaling up primarily financing, or have you thought of perhaps exchanging up or using your equity to invest in your future endeavors, whatever they may be, because that's something that, Andy, we certainly do as far as activating that equity and making it work for you. Because a lot of people don't think about that as a really viable way of scaling their business. So just wanted to bring
it's the only way that we're able to scale. I mean, obviously we need leverage, and I've got to sign on loans and there's recourse and all that stuff. But as far as like how do I get somebody with the talent of Ruben? Well, I'm bringing him. He's partnering, right? He's not working for me. He's working with me, and he's partnering, and then he's bringing in other people that want to participate in the deals, right? So, sorry. Any other questions?
Well, Jerome and Logan, it's time right now. Are either of you guys able to stick around for a few more minutes?
I got a 4.
Okay, I want to be respectful of your time, Drew, or anybody else that has to go. But Logan, can you stick around for a few more minutes? Or Andy?
You guys are okay with little Bella being on my
Yeah.
lap?
Yeah.
Jerome,
good,
if you got to bounce, brother, thank you for coming on here, man.
Thanks for making this happen. I'll tell him what the 6. Well, tell us real quick. The 6 levels.
6 levels of the red pill: self-image, relationships, and work. Those 3 are where all the stress in your life come from. Fix those 3, you turn down the noise of the stress. That allows you to focus on your health. Your health is level 4. Health is important for an apex performer. You heard a gentleman say he lost 40 pounds over the course of a year, maybe a little bit less, and now he's sleeping 8 hours a night. I can tell you that he was showing up in a very different way before, and his ability to produce at that apex level was very different. From level 4, we go to level 5, which is prosperity. I think everybody knows somebody who has wealth and they spend all their wealth trying to get their health back. And I encourage people not to do things out of order because I don't want you to have to go backwards. So usually when you hit the prosperity level, and that's time, talent, and treasures, not just how much money do you have self-actualized. And most people think it's over at that point. They've arrived. And then they start asking questions like, what was it all for? Is this really it? And in that space, they find that they need to go to level 6, which is significance. Some people call it legacy. I know you guys will like that word. Other people call it immortality. But the point here is that you want to go out and make a positive impact on the lives of others. And you can do that from your place of abundance because you handle the first 5 layers. And so I spend a lot of time working with people who are moving through that continuum. And it doesn't matter if you've reached level 6, there's another level 6 for you. And so then you would go back to the bottom of the pyramid or the circles, the model for a centered life, and redefine your self-image and then elevate your game again. And it's a perpetual cycle, but it is one that
awesome.
If you enjoy the journey, your life will transform pretty dramatically.
That's
Boom.
phenomenal.
That's awesome,
That was
brother. Thanks for
amazing.
making it happen.
Amen, brother.
Appreciate
That
it.
was really cool. All right, Jay, man. We'll let you
Talk
go
to
for
you
your
guys
4
soon.
o'clock, man. This is amazing. Thank you. So real quick, just wanted to mention, let's see, Balram. Is that how you say your name?
It's actually Balmati Ramlochan. So
Balmati.
Bal for short.
Oh, okay, cool. So I want to answer that question real quick because when I started in capital raising, I did a bunch of little fourplexes, and then my partner and I split, and I didn't know how to find a new partner. So I got, I went backwards into corporate America for many years. And then I got introduced to a local mom and pop syndicator that was doing syndications, started the show. And the real thing, like when it happened for me that I was able to scale was when I made one simple decision, and it took me from struggling to partnership. And that was just partnering with somebody that was already good at the things that I wanted to be good at. So in the moment that I left my previous company and joined forces with Andy McMullen, it instantly happened. So this question of like, how do you get to the point where you scale, or when do you, like, what does it take? It happened in 1 minute when Andy picked up the phone for me. And it can happen to anybody on this call too. If you find a right partner, all of a sudden you are in an organization where you have the ability to grow bigger by leaps and bounds than you ever have before. So keep that in mind for the entire audience.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to just ask if Peggy, Peggy's has scaled a business, but Peggy has any insight as to what we're talking about that you want to add?
Awesome.
What do you want to add? What do you want to add for you? What was like a big moment you had in scaling your business that you might be able to share with the rest of the group?
Oh, the growing pains. Well, how we keep scaling, we keep adding more specialists who work in different areas of the country and raise capital. And then there's more to do and more to do and more to do. And pretty soon you find you're doing the admin job instead of doing the growing the business job. That's what we're in the middle of, is scaling right now. Because we went from being the syndicators and being the investors to creating a company, and they're really two different things. So like Ruben, right? Finding the right partner, how does that come to you? So we've hired some people to help us do that expansion. And you can't stop raising capital. You've got to keep finding people that need the money and working with them. So it's constant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thanks,
That's awesome.
Peggy.
All right.
And one thing to just add, Ruben, that I think would help everybody here is, as you're doing a good job, one thing that I think we all fail to do, including Legacy as a whole, is let's ask for the referral, right? I mean, we're taking care of these people. The best thank you would be just getting somebody to say, hey, look, give these guys a call. They might be able to help you, or they might know somebody that can help you. I think too often we're going after new money, and that we should, right? That should be part of the business. But I think that there's a huge amount. There's boatloads of money and opportunities in that Rolodex of yours. And, as Ruben just mentioned, like kind of one connection away or one phone call away. Yeah, that might sound kind of reductive and trite, but isn't that the truth? If we think about almost every big moment that we've ever had in our life, it was one kind of simple thing that we just didn't expect. Thanks for putting this together, Ruben, man.
That's cool.
I appreciate you, brother. And Logan, thanks for making it happen. Bella.
Bye, Bella. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
That's fantastic.
Incredibly informative. I appreciate you guys taking your time and sharing everything with us.
You're so welcome. It's been a lot of fun for us too. And then we get to learn as well and find out more about each other in this process. So this has been great. All right. With that, we're going to sign off
with Logan.
Yeah.
Any parting words?
I would just say stick to it. One thing we didn't get to really talk about is perseverance, and you could be 5 feet from gold, right? There's a story about the guys that were out there digging for months and months and months, and they gave up and they sold the land to the next group, and they dug for 2 days and found all the gold. So just keep digging every single day.
Mark Twain did that.
There you go.
5 feet from gold. Yeah.
5 feet from gold. One of my favorite stories.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
Enjoy
everybody.
your day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Great meeting.